तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। We were discussing the attributes of Brahman, isn't it? And a few attributes are left, or have you finished that completely?
Attributes are done.
Attributes are done, okay. Now, we'll read the topic, manifestations of Brahman.
Manifestations of Brahman. Brahman is one homogeneous mass of reality, but the manifestations of Brahman are manifold. Just as electricity is one, while its expressions are manifold. The sun is one, its reflections manifold. Not knowing the unifying nature of Brahman, the ignorant masses relate to its multifarious expressions. They become involved in their differences, divide themselves into various factions, and suffer the bitterness and misery arising therefrom. The wise rise above differences, recognize the Brahman through its manifestations, see unity in the diversity, identify with the Supreme Being, and revel in its peace and bliss. Brahman is the substratum of the microcosm and macrocosm that constitute the world. It is the center around which both of them revolve. The Supreme Being resides in yourself within. Discover yourself. The entire world will merge into it. A highly evolved spiritual person finds the expression of divinity everywhere. He would go into raptures merely at the sight of a flower or fruit. William Wordsworth was in ecstasy when he beheld the daffodils, whereas a less developed one, not as spiritually evolved, would need something more striking, perhaps a glorious sunrise or sunset, to inspire him. And the least developed with hardly spiritual react only to spectacular sights like the snow-capped Everest or the mighty Niagara Falls. Anything less would not stimulate the divinity in him. But then there are unspiritual extremists who do not react even to spectacular, breathtaking expressions of nature. They remain grossly inhuman, blind to splash of divinity lavished all over. Those are the persons who need miracles to excite them. Only such unnatural gimmicks would stir them from their spiritual slumber. These barren characters lack the fundamental spiritual trait of the human species. Everything in the world rests in your inner self. All perception, emotions, and thought proceed from the self. The world has no reality of its own, but people look upon it as real in itself, make a wrong evaluation, give it false attributes, which cause privation and pain, suffering and sorrow. They do not realize that the world has no status, substance, standing apart from the underlying reality. You may give the world as much status as you would a picture of your family. The picture is valued, loved, not for what it is worth, but because of your family that it represents. The picture has no value apart from the family. Likewise, the world is a picture of the reality. It has no inherent value without the reality. Learn to regard the world as you would the picture. Understand the reality alone exists. Recognize the reality in and through all your experiences in life. Regard all happenings as a great theatrical performance, as Shakespeare has wisely advised. Thus must you view the world from the balcony of your inner self. Watch the procession of action and perception, emotions and thought go by. Do not allow yourself to become involved and meshed with them. Stand apart, be objective, be a witness, Sakshi. All goes well thereafter. No friction, no frustration in life. You attain enduring peace and bliss. The question remains, how does one extricate oneself from the worldly entanglement and identify with the self within? Here is a simple parable which suggests a practical way to go about it. There was a king who ruled his state to perfection. His subjects adored him. He was advancing in age and had no heir to his throne. His ministers were concerned only with his welfare. They laid the problem before him. The king resolved to nominate his heir. After reflecting over the matter, he decided to organize a grand exhibition with the finest exhibits from different parts of the world. In that exhibition, he would be somewhere incognito. The subjects of the state would all be invited to the exhibition. He who finds him out shall be the heir to the throne. This was the royal proclamation. The proclamation was publicized. The exhibition declared open. People thronged to it. Everybody searched for the disguised king. Soon their excitement and enthusiasm died away. They became involved in the variety of fascinating displays and quite forgot the search. They lost the very purpose of the exhibition. In that aimless mob, one young man persisted with the search, determinedly pursued the goal, maintained consistency of his purpose, put forth all effort to discover the king, and remained detached from the attractions around. He searched every nook and corner, at last reached the furthest end of the exhibition. There he found a small neglected temple. It was a permanent structure in the vast exhibition grounds. Quite exhausted with the search, the young man sat at the entrance of the temple. He heard a prayer chanted by the priest inside. Ignoring the ritual, he promptly went and examined the priest. And lo, there was the king disguised. The king commended the youth's determination and effort and crowned him the king of the state. So it is with Brahman. Brahman remains incognito in the world. People are lost in the phenomena of perception, emotions, and thought. Few care to search for the reality that lies beyond the fascinations of the world. People are lost in the pleasures of life. They have virtually abandoned the kingdom of bliss. The wise one, however, rises above all terrestrial attraction, searches and researches Brahman in all phenomenal world. That rare one finds Brahman, becomes Brahman.
Having seen the various attributes and all these attributes that we saw in the previous topic, what is known as this, what we studied as a supreme God, those indicators are subtle by nature. Now we are discussing how Brahman is manifest. What are the manifestations of Brahman? The expressions of Brahman, the manifestations of Brahman is exactly like the various types of ornaments that comes out of one gold. The various types of various shapes, various sizes of pots that comes out of one clay. So the various ornaments as out of gold, the various pots that comes out of clay. Similarly, Brahman has various manifestations. So he says Brahman manifestation is manifold. Not knowing the unifying nature, meaning those who don't have the knowledge of the unifying nature, what will they get carried away by? They will get carried away by a specific expression. And then whatever expression is attractive, they will get stuck to that expression. Somebody sees another expression and they will be stuck to that expression. As a result of which, what is happening? They divide themselves into various factions. The various understandings of God, the various the bitterness and misery arising from religion. The wise rise above these differences, he says. What makes the wise rise above these differences? It makes the wise to rise above the differences because in and through the various expressions, they are able to understand the one unifying factor. As long as you don't see the one unifying factor, you will get carried away by the expressions. The moment you get carried away by expressions, you will develop a faction, a group. And then there will be so many groups. And each and every group will be in conflict with another group. So what he is saying here, the manifestations of Brahman are manifold. Okay. What is the manifestations of Brahman that is manifold? The manifestations of Brahman that is manifold is this. You see the all different types of Nama Rupa. You see the different types of names and forms. You see it. But you don't get carried away by it because you see something deeper than that. If you are not able to see something deeper than that, by default, you will be seeing only the Nama Rupa, the name and form. So, when you see the name and form, you will get into a faction. So, what is he saying here? Recognize the Brahman through its manifestations. See the unity in the diversity. The senses will perceive the diversity. Knowledge helps you to recognize the unifying factor. Please understand, at the level of the sense perceptions, you will see the diversity only, because that's what is there. Since that's what is there, you will only see that. And the senses can only see the diversity. Senses can never see the unifying factor. That is why you can't see the unifying factor. So, in order to understand the unifying factor, you need to learn to look at the manifestations through knowledge. The learning to look at life through knowledge is called Jnana Chakshu. That Jnana Chakshu is looking at life through the eye of knowledge. Invariably, what happens is, those who lack this eye of knowledge, those who lack this, those who lack this eye of knowledge, what will they go by? They will go by what the eyes see, what the normal eyes see. And what the normal eyes see? The normal eyes are designed to see only the manifestations. So the normal eye sees and understands the manifestation. The knowledge comes and tells you the difference between. The knowledge tells you that it is beyond it. And that is beyond is the substratum of the microcosm and the macrocosm. All this should be easy for us to understand, because just now in 7th chapter, we saw this Paraprakriti and Aparaprakriti. How Brahman is a substratum of the microcosm and the macrocosm. We went there into details. There we saw what is macrocosm, what is microcosm, and what are they made up of, and how Brahman is the substratum behind it. So, what is divinity? Who is a divine person? A divine person is one who will be able to identify with the substratum, who will be able to see the substratum and identify with the substratum, becomes a spiritual person. So, in order to understand the substratum, some understanding is required. What is that understanding? Brahman is the war and the woof. We saw all that already. When I say we saw that already, we are going to see it again, and we will continue to keep seeing it. Till we actually experience it, we will keep reading the same thing again and again and again. You can't say, oh, we have studied it, then go to the next. No, how much ever we study, we'll keep studying the same thing again and again and again. Okay. So, what is the substratum? The clay is the substratum of the pot. Substratum means that which lends itself to be modified into it, modified into a different, modified itself into a different entity. And that modification makes you to believe that it is different from the original. That is called substratum. What is again defined? What is substratum? Substratum means a basic material that lends itself to be modified. And when it lends itself to be modified, you get carried away by the modification, thinking it to be an independent status. You give it an independent status. What is that example? Again, take the same clay and pot. For the pot to come into existence, what all is required? For the pot to come into existence, what all is required? The primary requirement is clay. And then the potter, and then the wheel, and then the post with which he rotates the wheel, the sunlight. All these factors put together come into the creation of the entity called pot. In all this, the pot is free from some, the pot can never be free from one. That is the substratum. What the pot cannot be free from is the substratum. What the pot can be free from is not the substratum. Are you able to follow? What the pot cannot be free from, the pot can never be free from clay. Why the pot can never become free from clay? The pot cannot tell the clay, give me a break. No. Wherever I go, why are you coming with me? Give me a break. I want freedom from you. The pot can have freedom from, the pot can have freedom from the potter, the wheel, the post, the sunlight, etc. But the pot cannot have freedom from the clay. It means what? The substratum. This being the substratum, what happens? Becomes the essential factor of the pot. Going one step deeper, what do we understand? Going one step deeper, what do we understand? It is the clay that is appearing as pot. It's the clay that is appearing itself as the pot. It is the gold that is appearing itself into an ornament. Similarly, the macrocosm and the microcosm, the world is nothing but Brahman, the reality. And it is that reality that lends itself, or the reality, Brahman itself, appears like the manifestations, the various manifestations. A person out of ignorance will give pot an independent status different from the clay. That is ignorance. Again, and a person of ignorance will give pot the status of an independent entity. The pot is not an independent entity. You understand the clay and pot and then transfer it to world and Brahman. You understand how each and everything in this creation, each and every aspect of creation is Brahman. But how can a terrorist be Brahman? That becomes our problem. How can a terrorist be Brahman? How can this person can be Brahman? All are Brahman can be understood, sir, but definitely not this person. It means what? The clay is missed and the pot is given an independent status. When you give the pot an independent status, you miss the clay. Similarly, when you look at the creation, when you look at the world, and what is world? World means objects, beings, environment, situations. This is what world is. When we say world, what do we mean by world? The objects, the beings, the environment, the situations that we are into, all this combined collectively, philosophically in one word, we call it as the world. So when we say the world, what happens is you don't see the manifestation of Brahman in that. You are not able to see it as divine. Manifestations of Brahman means manifestations of divine. That's what it is. You are not able to see it as divine. Why you are not able to see it as divine? You are getting carried away by the Nama Rupa, by the names, and whenever you get carried away by the names and forms, you will not be able to see the divine. Most importantly, you can't see divine in pockets. You can't see divine in some, and you can't see some as divine and some as demonical. That distinction is not possible. That's what he says. You can't see some as divine and some as demonical. Mind has this problem of dividing everything into opposites. The problem of the mind is to divide everything into opposites. By dividing everything into opposite, it will like one and dislike the other. First, it has to divide everything into opposites. After dividing everything into opposites, it will like one and dislike the other. To an extent where the mind divides the hand itself as holy, unholy. No. The right hand is holy, the left hand is unholy, isn't it? Okay, if the left hand is unholy, then why keep it? We can cut it off. No. Why keep the unholy thing? The nature of the mind is to divide things into like this. In this division, it sees some as divine and it will see some as demonical. So what is the division? This is the division. Seeing some as divine and seeing some as demonical is the division. A highly evolved spiritual person sees divinity everywhere. And it's not that he is trying to, it's not that he's brainwashing himself to say everything, see everything as God, see everything as God. It's not that. It's a matter of fact for this person. Divine is everywhere is a matter of fact. It is the divine that is in each and every form is a matter of knowledge, understanding. So what does that mean? A highly evolved spiritual person finds the expression of divinity everywhere. We have done this analysis quite a few times. You see a Mount Everest or a Niagara Falls, a spectacular expression reminds you of divine. A spectacular expression reminds you of divine. As you evolve spiritually, you remember that steps? As you evolve spiritually, a sunrise or a sunset is enough to see the divine. As you evolve still further, by peeling a banana, you can go into raptures. William Wordsworth, he says, he quotes here, was in ecstasy when he looked at the daffodils. more developed you are, what is seen as normal things, you will see divine in that. What others see as very ordinary thing, you will start seeing divine in that. In order to help us to do this, what the Shastras did, the Vedas, all aspects of life was associated with divinity. When you see a sun, they called it as sun god. Those who called it as sun god also knows that there is no person there driving any chariot. Those who called it as sun god also knew it, but still they called it as sun god. Varuna, the water god. They also know that there is no person called water god. Why divinity is planted everywhere? Why are you helped to see the divine everywhere? More you see the divine, your relationship will be different with it. If you see the divine, your relationship will be very different. If you do not see the divine, your relationship will be very different. That's all. If you see the world as divine, your relationship with the world will be different. If you don't see it as divine, your relationship with the world will be different. Or work backwards now. The relationships are very bad. The relationships are very poor because it is not seen as Brahman, the reality. The moment it is seen as Brahman, the reality, you start seeing it differently. That is the manifestations of Brahman. But then he goes on to say, there are these extreme people who simply refuses to see divine at all, who can't see divine at all. Therefore, miracles help them to see God. What is the miracle that should happen? A blind person should start seeing. How can a blind person see? The lame person should start walking. Miracle. When a miracle happens, that miracle is the confirmation of the divine. And most of the time, miracles don't happen. Or in fact, miracles are happening all the time in the true sense. We don't see it. So in the normal sense, it doesn't happen. Therefore, what happens? The divine is missed. Okay, what happens when you miss the divine? When you miss the divine, you will be seeing it as demonical. That's what in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita he says, either you see it as divine. If you don't see it as divine, what would you see it as? I see it very neutral, sir. I see it very objectively, sir. I don't see them as divine and all, but still I don't see them as demonical also. This possibility doesn't exist at all. Either you see them as divine or demonical. Manifestations of Brahman says, all that you see is divine. All that you see is divine. Okay. What does divine mean? What is the meaning of the word divine? Because we keep using these words again and again, no? Divinity, divine. What is the meaning of the word divine? Holy. It means holy. It means meaningful. It means precious. These are, what does the word mean? That which is elevating is divine. That which is ennobling, that which is elevating is divine. Divine means the protector. Divine means the protector. Don't worry, English dictionary may not define divine in the way that we are discussing. And we will make our own dictionary. No problem. Vedantic English dictionary we can put. We can make a Vedantic English dictionary we can make. So what does divine mean? Divine means ennobling, elevating, holy. Divine means the protector. All that is there is for your protection, is for your elevation, is for your growth. The ignorant, the fundamental spiritual trait of the human species, they lack. They lack the fundamental spiritual trait. What is the fundamental spiritual trait? When we did chapter 2, we saw the fundamental spiritual trait. The fundamental spiritual trait is the wonderment. What is the fundamental spiritual trait? The fundamental spiritual trait in a human being is wonderment. What in chapter 2, Kathopanishad calls it as Ascharya. Whenever you are in that wonderment state, you are divine. Ascharya, wonderment. Those who lack the fundamental spiritual growth lack this wonderment. So your spiritual growth, your spiritual development is determined by the wonderment, ascharya. What happens to people? They lack this wonderment and they have pain and misery and bitterness. When you are in wonderment, you are in a blessed state. When you are not in wonderment, what are you doing? You are complaining, you are in worry, you are in anxiety, all the negative, all the emotions, all that which causes pain is a result of moving away from wonderment. So manifestations of Brahman helps us to see how everything in the world is resting on your inner self. The world has no reality on its own. Out of ignorance, you look upon it as real in itself. Just as the pot is given the independent status from the clay. The pot is seen as an individual entity, not recognizing the clay. The moment you give it a reality where there is no reality, what happens? Okay, where there is no reality, you give it a reality. The moment you give it a reality where there is no reality, what happens? Pain, suffering, sorrow. Or work backwards. Wherever there is pain, suffering, sorrow, the unreal, you have made it. What is unreal, you have given it the status of reality. So, what is unreal, when you give it a status of reality, that giving the status of reality is the cause for pain, sorrow, suffering. The manifestations of Brahman says, understand the real as real, understand the unreal as unreal. When you understand the real as real and when you understand the unreal as unreal, your vision is, you have the right vision. You have the proper vision. The world is meaningful only because it is the real. The ornament is meaningful only because it is gold. Correct? Ornament is valuable only because it is gold. Same ornament, when it is not gold, what is the value you give? There's no value. So, the value is always because of the substratum. Always remember this. Whenever you give value to something, that value should spring from the substratum. The value that you give to anything should never spring from the unreal. What is unreal? Temporary. Unreal means temporary. We have seen that whenever in Vedanta we use the word unreal, we understand it as temporary. Now, what is temporary? That which is bound to change, that which is subject to change is temporary. And that which is subject to change, that which is bound to change, you give it a status of permanency, reality. That giving status of permanency, reality to that which doesn't have any reality is the cause of sorrow and suffering. The moment you take it as real and try to solve the problem, sorrow will continue. Whatsoever solutions you bring. Whatsoever solutions you bring to the problem, taking the problem as real. Vedanta comes from a different perspective. What is the different angle Vedanta comes from? Vedanta says, what you see as real is not that real. But the value is because it is, the substratum is that which is valuable. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's example, remember, the thief in and through the various ornaments, what does the thief see? He only sees the gold. Very beautiful example. In and through all the ornaments, in and through the various ornaments, in and through everything, what is the thief's focus upon? The thief's focus is only upon the gold, not the ornament, for he is not interested in the ornament. Similarly, you give the world a reality as much as the thief gives reality to the ornaments. Ornaments are many, but the value to the ornaments is because it is gold. Ramatirtha gives another example. What is the example that Ramatirtha gives? That's what he's quoted here. You may give the world as much status as you would a picture of your family. You have a picture of your family. What is that picture? Paper, ink. What is that picture? Paper and ink. That's all, no? But you don't see it as paper and ink. You see it very, very differently. Why you see it very differently? Because what that paper represents. If it is a person that you love, it will be framed and it will be hung on the wall. If it is a person you hate, You will take that picture and beat that picture up, isn't it? You can't beat that person. Yeah, when you can't beat the person, what do? You beat you beat the picture. Either way, there is the value to the picture is not because of the paper and the ink. The value to the picture is because of what it represents. The value to the world is because what the world represents. It has no inherent value without the real. It has no inherent value without the real. Therefore, what do? Understand all through your experiences of life, your focus should be on the real. In and through all your experiences of life, your focus should be on the real. You may go through a blissful moment, your focus should be on the real. You may go through a painful moment, your focus should be on the real. And invariably, painful moments, at least temporary, make us to think of the real. Pleasurable moments, we just get lost in that pleasurable moment. Whether it is a pleasurable moment or a painful moment, you got to recognize the reality in and through all your experiences in life. View the world from the balcony of your inner self. I don't know, personally, I like this statement so much when I heard it for the first time. From the balcony of your inner self, watch the procession of action and perception, emotion and thought go by. Yeah. Wonderful is to sit in the balcony, no? And that too if you are having a balcony on the high rise, 10th floor, 15th floor. So wonderful. You sit there, you keep watching, everything is moving. People are moving, the children are playing, the cars are going, somebody is happy in the car, somebody is unhappy in the car, somebody is smiling, somebody is exchanging flowers in the car, somebody is bitterly fighting with one another. You see all that passing by. And when you see it from the height, differences will not be visible. When you see it from the height, differences will not be visible. Meaning, whenever you get when you are flying and the flight takes off, you can see it from the window seat. All are at the same level, and then suddenly the flight lifts off, takes off. What happens? All the distinctions and differences do not matter. It disappears. And then from a height, all looks the same. The tallest building and the land both looks the same. It means what? You have reached a height. Also, what it means is the ups and downs stops affecting you. The ups and downs starts affecting you. The ups and downs starts affecting you. That's where in the Mahabharata, they talk about Yudhishthira's chariot. We see bullet trains, he had a bullet car, I think. Yudhishthira's chariot is a bullet car. What was his chariot? His chariot is always 3 feet above the ground. It means what? While all the chariot goes through the ups and downs, all the chariot, when everybody goes through the ups and downs, he was cruising. Isn't it? Imagine metro rail work is happening all around the house, isn't it? You are caught in the center where 360 degrees metro work is happening. So you come out of the house, it's only they are not potholes. They are bone breakers, you have to say. No? Imagine you have a car which is 2 feet above the ground. How it will be? We need not go to the ortho. We need not take MRI. We need not do anything. That's the height, spiritual height. That's the spiritual height where all these fluctuations stops affecting. The moment Yudhishthira uttered a lie, the story says his chariot touched the ground. Till the time it didn't touch the ground. When he uttered a lie, it touched the ground. Then he was also affected by the potholes, the ups and downs. View the world from the balcony of your inner self means what? You are always 3 feet above the ground. When you are always 3 feet above the ground, all the disturbances that is at the ground level stops affecting you. When you grow to a higher and higher and higher spiritual heights, even the tallest building looks very small. Meaning, what others call as a huge problem, a big problem, where they feel that they just can't get out of it. The only way to get out of the problem is by committing suicide. People think like that, no? And some act also on that. This person says, there's no problem at all. Why are you bothered? And when he says there is no problem at all, why are you bothered? You will feel like killing this person, isn't it? You will feel like killing this person who's saying there is no problem where there is only a problem. No friction, no frustration in life. Why no friction and no frustration? Because you are above the ground level. When you are above the ground level, the undulations of the ground will stop affecting you. You are 10 feet above the ground, you are 100 feet above the ground, and you go into that height, what they call as the cruising height. You are all by yourself in that supreme bliss. All by yourself in that bliss. The question remains. What is the question? How does one extricate oneself from the entanglements and identify with the self? How does one do that? That's the story here. The most valuable is invisible. That which is visible is not valuable. Full stop. That which is easily available is not valuable. Or that which is the most valuable is in incognito. Instead of pebbles all around, if gold were to lie around like that, what is the problem? Isn't it? You come out, you see pebbles all around, isn't it? Imagine gold were to be like this. Then it won't be gold at all. It will be a pebble only. Why? Because the valuable always remains hidden. Actually, it is not hidden. Because of lack of vision, it appears to be hidden. In reality, it is not hidden. It's there. Because of lack of vision, it appears to be hidden. What did the boy do here? The story. The king will be in the exhibition ground incognito. And whoever finds the king will become the king. And who doesn't want to become the king? Everybody wants to become the king, no? So the entire country came to the exhibition grounds. Maybe a better exhibition than Dubai Expo, isn't it? Dubai Expo had an exhibition, no? And everybody was going for that. And quite a few people invited me also. You get lost, you go there, you get lost in that exhibition. So everybody came into that Dubai Expo, and the king is incognito there. Whoever finds the king becomes the king. And everybody got so excited and they visited the exhibition. What happened? Soon their excitement, enthusiasm died away. Why their enthusiasm died away? See, all our excitement and enthusiasm and all is only for a few minutes. Huh? Yeah. It doesn't stay even for a few hours, for a few days. It's only for a few minutes. That's how shallow. That's how shallow it is. The whole lot wanted to become the king. They came to the palace grounds, and exhibition means what? Fascinating displays, no? And they got lost in the variety of fascinating displays. What is the fascinating displays? Perceptions, actions, emotions, thought. All these put up a fascinating display. And people get lost in these fascinating displays of perceptions, actions, emotions, and thought. And very soon they forgot the search. It means what? They forgot the very purpose of coming to the exhibition ground. They came to the exhibition ground to become the king, and they got lost in the display and forgot the very purpose of the exhibition. In that aimless group, why it is called aimless group? Because there's no focus on anything. They came for something, see something else, get carried away in that, and then from that they move on to something else. And down the line, if you look back, I don't know, such an aimless life the human being lives. So he says, in that aimless mob, one person persisted with the search. He's refusing to get carried away by the displays. He went through all the displays. He saw all that. Even he's going through the displays, when he was seeing all that, what was he looking for? What was he looking for? The king. The rest got lost in that and forgot the king. This young man, or you can put woman also, doesn't matter. Said one person. Yeah. Why man can be a woman also? A person. That person maintained the consistency of purpose. Determination wasn't lost. The consistency was maintained. What is the determination, consistency? Not to lose sight of the goal. Not to lose sight of the goal, the purpose. Sir, I also want to be very purposeful. I also want to be very consistent, but nobody is cooperating. Determination, consistency comes from within, not dependent on external support. If it is dependent on external support, don't worry. You can never be determined to do anything in life. You can never be consistent in anything. Why? Because external situations keeps fluctuating, changing. When they keep fluctuating, changing, your determination, consistency also will change. No. Therefore, this boy here, this person here went about looking at the variety of displays, the fascinating displays. In and through all that, he remembered the purpose. What is the purpose? The king. The king is the purpose. That effort to discover the king while going through all the fascinating displays is called detachment. What is detachment? That consistent effort in wanting to identify the king while he is going through all the fascinating displays is called detachment. This is detachment. He searched every nook and corner. At last, parking place also he went and saw. Nothing was there. All the places he saw, and at last reached the end of the exhibition. Reached the end of that exhibition. There he found a small neglected temple, a permanent structure. You can always see that in some of the grounds, there will be one permanent, small permanent structure, and that permanent structure will be the most neglected part in the entire exhibition grounds. Quite exhausted with that search, the boy sat. And suddenly, he heard a priest doing a puja there. Even here, he was very detached. Even here, he was very detached. How do you know that even here, he was very detached? He went there and asked the priest to turn. He didn't worship the god there. What did he do? He asked the priest to turn. And when the priest turned, he examined the priest, and Anshu taught us what? The king was found. And lo, there was the king disguised. The king commended the youth's determination and effort and crowned him as the king. He became the king of the state. So it is with Brahman. The only difference here is it is like the gold hidden in ornament. It is like the clay hidden in pot is how Brahman is hidden in the world. How the gold is hidden in the ornament. How the clay is hidden in the pot. Brahman is hidden in the world. Few care to search for that reality. And whoever does it, they experience what? All the manifestations, all the expressions, all that they experience is Brahman, divine God. The wise one, however, rises above all terrestrial attraction, searches and researches about what? They go on searching, and they go on researching. Say first you search and found, and then you do research, no? Isn't it? The word research means you have searched and found out. Again, you search. Okay, why do you have to search again when you have searched once and found out? The manifestations are many. In and through those manifestations, there is the divine. That rare one finds Brahman, and that rare one becomes Brahman. And what is that process? Very important process which we are going to study next week. And what is that process? Negating the form and asserting the gold. Negating the ornament and asserting the gold. This process is called negation and assertion. And the entire Vedantic teaching is about the assertion. In fact, Assertion comes much later. In the earlier stages, it is only the negation. How does that person actually do? Negated the ornament and asserted the gold. Negated the pot and asserted the clay. Why the pot is negated? The pot is negated because that which is temporary by nature, you have given it a permanency. That which is temporary by nature, you have given it a permanency, and the permanency you have given ought to be negated. And the permanency that you gave must be negated. Negate the ornament and assert the gold. Negate the pot and assert the clay. This is the method of neti, neti, neti. We are going to see that next week. The process of assertion and negation. For today, it is the manifestations. For today, we saw the manifestations. Manifestations are many. Just because manifestations are many, do not miss the reality behind it. With this, we conclude for today. We continue next week with the process of negation and assertion.